The 1% Wall Street tax. Yes, the people here in the Midwest have heard of it. But we know so little about it because nobody is really telling us all the facts. And I'm going to do the best I can to tell you all this stuff in this video. Okay? And the first thing I got to do is try to get the National Nurses United, which is an organization. I didn't even know that organization existed until today. So they go, wait a minute. You didn't even know about the National Nurses United? Nope. We're not being told this. Now, who is this we? We are the farmer bobs. We are the retail store clerks. We are the street sweepers. We're not being told this. Go ahead, ask them. Go up to these store clerks and say, hey, I'm from the National Nurses United. Ever heard of us? They'll say, nope. If you want us to know, you need to make a full-blown presentation on YouTube explaining who you are, where you're based, and more importantly, who the head of your organization is. And then you need to start explaining in the most simple terms what you're trying to do. Now then, what are they trying to do? Okay, the 1% Wall Street tax works like this. First of all, you have to understand what a stock and bond is. We farmer bobs, we don't buy stocks, we don't buy bonds, so we have no idea what you guys are doing. We don't know what's going on Wall Street. Be nice if we did, and I should explain, and one of these days I will. But anyway, what's a stock? It's a piece of paper. It's a piece of paper that says you own a certain part of a company. Okay? Now, let's help you picture it this way. Let's say 1,000 people gather up, and each one of them is giving a little certificate that says they own part of the company. So those 1,000 people now own so-and-so company. Okay? Now then, what's a bond? A bond is basically a loan. You know how you go to the bank and you try to get a loan to buy a house or a car? Well, this is kind of a mortgage in reverse. So here's how that works. A company comes to you and says, hey, we need some of your money to do so-and-so project. Let's say it's some kind of a state thing. You know, how these states build your roads? Well, they'll issue up bonds and say, hey, we want you to loan us money so we can build so-and-so road. Say, okay, so you loan them money. And what happens is at a certain point, they're to return that money back to you, and they're to pay you a little extra, which is the interest, for holding on to your money and using it to build that road. Whew. Now then, what is a commodity? What is a futures commodity? Okay, basically, this is how that works. They say, all right, we know that so-and-so farmer is going to grow so-and-so crop. At least he's going to try. Now, we're speculating that these crops are going to turn out okay, and we're going to make certain money off of it. So we're going to pay this farmer certain amount for these crops. Now, if the crops don't turn out okay, they've lost money. If the crops turn out better than expected, they make money. Okay? So, that's futures. Futures is basically gambling. They're gambling. Those crops are going to turn out okay once they buy them. They've bought them, and however they turn out, that's what they're going to get. And if they didn't turn out too good, they're going to lose money. But if they turn out better than expected, they're going to gain money. Okay. Now then, what the National Nurses United wants to do is every time you buy a stock into a company, every time you buy a bond, which is basically loaning money to a company, or you buy into these futures, when you buy crops hoping that they'll turn out okay, you're going to pay a tax. Now, they say, well, this isn't going to affect individuals, this is going to affect companies. So in other words, an individual could buy a stock, or participate in a bond or participate in a future, and he won't get any tax. But if a company does the same thing, he's going to get taxed. Problem number one. How many times have we seen companies find some kind of a loophole to get out around something like that? Matter of fact, companies today are not only not paying taxes, but on top of that, they are getting tax refunds. You think these companies can't figure out some way to get around this? If they have to, they'll send their stuff overseas and do their trading over there where they won't be subjected to our taxes. Oops. That's problem number one. Here's problem number two. Problem number two is this. Well, we're National Nurses United. We're going to play Robin Hood, and we're going to take this stuff from the greedy rich, and we're going to give it to the poor. How are they going to give it to the poor? Not in education. See, if this was a tax for education, I'd say, yeah, go for it. Here's the problem. They're not going to do it for education. Oh, we're going to keep people from having their houses foreclosed. And we're going to make sure we give them more SNAP cards. They don't need more SNAP cards. They don't need their houses saved. They need education. How do I prove this? It's proven from Facebook. Yes, well, I saw a Facebook posting. And I'm going to explain this to you thoroughly. There was a clerk in a grocery store. She was ringing up a customer's groceries. Now, as you know, at a grocery store, when they have the store clerk and they're ringing up groceries, they have this thing called a conveyor belt. Now, this conveyor belt sends the groceries from one end to the other so that the clerk can actually ring them up. Now, usually you'll have 3 or 4 people in the grocery line. Okay, this would be the checkout line. Okay, you have 3 or 4 people. Now, how do we keep one customer's grocery separate from another customer's grocery? We have this thing called a divider bar. I have tried to look up the history of this. I'm hoping some grocery store will finally give me the history of this, because I'd like to know how the divider bar was invented, who invented it, and what was his real motivation. I'd like to know that. But anyway, that's another video for another time. Anyway, the clerk picks up the divider bar and tries to ring it up, not realizing its true purpose. That's bad. Okay. Now we have another situation where we have a clerk at a restaurant that doesn't know what a baker's dozen is. We had a manager of a restaurant that was not aware that $2 bills, United States $2 bills, are actually legal tender. We had another young lady at a convenience store with a keyless entry system into her car. What she failed to realize was that the manual key to the car was on the same key ring as the keyless entry, so she thought she'd locked herself out of her car and couldn't get in. But it gets better. We had a young lady who had watched her kid eat a whole bunch of bugs. Now, that's not a problem in itself. Those bugs weren't poisonous. But then she dumps a bunch of bug killer down the kid's throat to try to kill the bugs that he just ate. Here's a clue. If the kid ate the bug's dead. You don't have to kill it. It's already dead. Not going to live inside of him. Okay? These are the kind of people trying to get jobs nowadays. This is an absolute failure of the educational system. Every day I get reports of thousands of teachers. There's millions of teachers in the United States, but thousands of them, which means there's a small amount of them, are doing a very poor job of education. Now, I've had a mixture of both good teachers and bad teachers. That means there are actually good teachers out there. Jaime Escalante was a wonderful teacher, so that means there are good teachers out there. But I've also dealt with my bad teachers too. When you have people doing the kind of things I just described, that's bad teaching. Pure and simple. Is this 1% Wall Street tax going to go to the educational system to fix all that? Nope. No, it's not. That's the first thing it should do. If the educational system was fixed, then we wouldn't have these kind of problems to begin with. People would be highly educated. Now, here's the third problem. The third problem is that we are having technology slowly taking over jobs. Ask a factory worker. He'll tell you, well, I was working in a factory and all of a sudden they brought a machine in and I was out of a job. They'll tell you that. I've even had some good teachers come to me and say, hey, because of all these virtual classes they have online, we don't have teaching jobs anymore. They've told me that. That's true. And it's happening in every single industry. You think it's not? Doctors are being replaced with technology. Nurses are being replaced with technology. They are replacing store clerks. You can't even hardly get a store clerk job because of the self-checkout lines. What about them kiosks that help you print your digital pictures? There used to be people that used to process those 35mm rolls of film. Those people are gone. It's happening in every field. They've got such nice software now that you don't have to go to a professional photographer anymore. You can make your professional photography shots without the photographer. So they're feeling the bite too. Ask the airplane people, the pilots, the stewardesses. They'll tell you, because of the virtual meetings they're having with these webinars, their jobs are going away too. It's everywhere. We are slowly becoming like the Eloi in the Time Machine. And that's bad for our economy. But is this 1% Wall Street tax going to fix all that? Nope. It is a temporary stopgap. It is not a permanent solution. They are touting this as a permanent solution, and it is not. They say, well, what about this educational system? How are we going to fix that? If the 1% tax isn't going to fix it, how can we fix it? You've come to the right place. I am now bridging the gap between people who cannot afford gasoline to get to the colleges, the textbooks, the room and board, the tuition. They can't afford any of this. But they can't afford me. I don't have textbooks, although I'm thinking about making some very cheap textbooks for you people. I don't charge tuition. I don't charge room and board, and you don't have to take gas to get over here. You turn on your computer, here I am. It's people like me that's going to fix this problem. You say, well, it's going to take such a long time for you to fix this problem. No, it's not. I thought about that. Before I even started, I thought about that. Here's part of the solution right here. The Memory Book by Harry Lorraine. This will cost you about $7. Compare that to the textbooks in college. You learn this, and you learn how to speed read, and you can go to any library, and they'll have speed reading books, and they'll teach you how to speed read. Once you do that, you come over here and you start learning what I'm teaching you, and you will improve in your education. Once your education is high enough, they may actually hire you. Would you hire somebody that didn't know what a divider bar was? Would you hire somebody who didn't know what a baker's dozen was? Would you hire somebody that you knew was going to dump bug killer down their kid's throat? Can you imagine what they do to you? That's why employers aren't hiring these people anymore. Because they lack education and they know it. Even some of the kids that went through college, they don't have the education. Because they didn't really pay attention in school, and the teachers didn't pay attention to what they were doing. That's why I disagree with this 1% tax. It is not going to go to the educational system to fix that. We need to take that NEA, dismantle it, and rebuild it from scratch. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. We need to fix the NEA and fix our educational system so these kind of things don't happen anymore. And until we fix that, we're going to have problems. So like I said, if they were fixing that, it'd be no problem. But that's not what they're going to do. They're going to continue to give people these SNAP cards, which lowers their dignity. They're going to try to save the foreclosed homes. Why don't you have these people work to save the foreclosed homes? Give them their dignity back. Give them an opportunity to save their homes through hard work. If you don't work, you don't eat. How about that? There's nothing wrong with that. You say, well, we couldn't possibly learn fast enough. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I've proven it. I've taught it here. And I'm going to keep giving it to you until you do. The solution is education, not a tax. If we were using a tax to fix the educational system, that'd be one thing, but we're not. The thing about this is that people don't realize that if you go and invest in all these stocks and bonds and those companies go belly up, you're out your money. That's why a lot of farmer bobs don't invest in the stock market. They don't invest in bonds. They put in certificates of deposit because they expect their money to be there when they get back. That's what a lot of people don't realize. Whew. Hopefully that cleared up my position on the 1% tax. And you see now what the problems are. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down here in the comments section below. I will tell you more in a future video. Stay tuned.